All right, class, quick question. Where do pineapples come from? And what about chocolate? Now, imagine a world where you could only eat the food that was grown in Florida. No chocolate, no bananas, no coffee. Tragic, right? Well, that's why today we're diving into global food system and how we get all of this amazing food from all over the world. All right, so we're going to talk about food and other agricultural products and how they're part of a global supply chain. So, when you eat a mango from Publix, it didn't just appear there magically. It's part of a huge global food supply chain. Farmers grow it, exporters ship it, and then stores sell it. South Florida, being so close to the Caribbean and Latin America, is a major player in the system. Ever notice how we have avocados all year round? You can thank trade for that. All right, so here's the deal. Core countries like the US rely on periphery countries like Colombia or Ecuador. So, for cheap labor and raw materials, in return, core countries process the food and sell it back, often at a higher price. Even ever see those fancy organic coffee beans like from Colombia, grown there, roasted and packaged in the US, and then sold for $10 a cup at Starbucks? That's interdependence at work. All right, so let's talk about the real MVP of your Monday morning coffee, or at least my Monday morning. So that latte you're sipping didn't just come from a Florida farm. It likely started its journey in what we call the Bean Belt, a region that circles the globe between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Now, those are the two lines that you're going to see on the map right there in that section in the middle. That's where those lines are. Um, and this belt includes major producers like Brazil, Colombia, Ethiopia, and Vietnam. Why these places? They have the right combo: warm temperatures, high elevation, rich soil. Basically, the spa conditions that coffee plants love to grow in. But here's the geography gets real on this. These countries do the growing, but the money that's made in core countries. Think roasting, branding, and packaging. Those steps happen in the US, Europe, and Japan. So that's the global food system. Periphery countries do the labor, core countries make the profits. So let's be real. While your $6 iced coffee might taste amazing, the farmer who grew those coffee beans probably just earned a few cents per pound. So this is a prime example of commodity dependence, where a country relies on one or two products to survive economically. It's risky business and it ties directly into global inequality. All right, so let's talk about chocolate. Where does it come from? All right, so it comes from West Africa. West Africa grows most of the world's cocoa beans. But guess where they turn into actual chocolate bars? Europe and the US. The same goes for coffee, grown in Brazil, roasted in Italy, and served in Miami. This is why we call it a commodity chain. Each step adds value to the item that's being grown. All right, so some countries have become highly dependent on one or more export commodities. All right, so some countries rely heavily on one or two crops. Think about Venezuela and oil. So when oil prices dropped, their economy struggled. The same thing happened with food. If a country's economy or exports mainly bananas, and then suddenly no one wants to buy bananas, which is hard to imagine, their economy is in trouble. That's commodity dependence. All right, so here's where it gets messy. Politics, conflict, and natural disasters can mess up food trade. Ever notice how food prices went up after the pandemic? That's because supply chains broke down. And when countries get into trade wars like the US and China, it can mean that certain foods become more expensive and harder to get. All right, so the main elements of global food distribution networks are affected by political relationships, infrastructure, and patterns of world trade. Okay, so trade deals, tariffs, and import export laws affect what we can buy. Ever wonder why Cuban coffee isn't in every store here, even though we're super close to Cuba? So, trade restrictions. Meanwhile, trade agreements like NAFTA made it easier for Mexico to send avocados to the US, and that's why guac is always available at Chipotle. Okay, so imagine you own a pineapple farm in the Amazon rainforest. You have the best pineapples, but there's one problem, no roads. So to get them to the market, poor infrastructure means food goes to waste before it even reaches a customer. So in contrast, Florida has highways, ports, railways, and all of these help get oranges from the groves to your fridge fast. So the challenges in food distribution, even though we produce enough food to feed everyone, not everyone has access. War, poverty, bad roads make it tough to get food where it's needed the most. Ever seen the news report about famine in countries that actually have farms? That's because of these distribution problems. All right, so the global food trade has doubled since the 90s. Countries like the US and China dominate exports, but there's also been a huge rise in trade between developing nations. So, for example, Brazil and China trade soybeans, cutting out the US middleman. So, think of it like DoorDash for countries direct shipping, no extra fees. Periphery and semi periphery countries like Mexico and India are producing more food and selling to each other instead of just selling to core countries. And it's like how local food businesses in Miami sell to each other instead of importing everything from New York. The food industry is shifting, and South Florida benefits because we're such a major hub. All right. So that is it for 5.9. Make sure you write down any questions that you may have based off this lesson. Make sure you complete your notes and do your lesson reviews and your reflection questions. I will see you guys in class next time.